Greetings, everyone. My name is Inakasim from Aviation Tanzania. I'm bringing you news, interviews, features, and the latest updates in aviation industry, both in Tanzania and beyond. And today we are very honored and more excited to have an interview with the CEO of South African Airways Group, Professor John Lomola, who is going to join us on this interview today. And as you already know that early on this year of 2025 on January, South African Airways did the resumption of the route from Johannesburg to Dar es Salaam, and it's also received two new aircraft, Airbus A320, and it's expecting to receive the other three new aircraft within this year of 2025. And we're also going to focus on route expansion as well as the fleet expansion and the future plans of South African Airways. We need to learn more. And the most interesting part on this interview should be about the marketing strategy that South African Airways is normally using to make sure that it captures the passengers market in the same route that other airlines in East Africa are operating. Hello, Professor John. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Senam is Kazim. It's an honor to be on this platform speaking to our audience.
It's also an honor to have you on this interview. Thank you so much for joining us today. So, Professor John, can you share an overview of South African Airways' the current position of an airline in aviation industry, both in Africa and globally at the moment?
South African Airways is one of is the oldest commercial airline on the continent of Africa. Last year, we were celebrating 90 years of the resilient existence of the airline. And we are saying resilient because having launched in 1934 as a South African carrier, South African Airline has seen a number of turbulences, prime of which being from the time that South Africa was a pariah, rightly so, of the international world because of its apartheid policies. And South African Airways was not allowed to land and fly in Africa. After 1994, we regained our freedom. And South African Airways became a national flag carrier of the democratic South Africa. We even changed our colors, our livery, we call it in the airline industry, in 1996 to our current colors scheme and painting. But South African Airways went through a lot of challenges during the period around COVID. It was not very easy. The airline was grounded for about 18 months. And it emerged after that under our leadership and the team of executives and the whole new staff of SAA to where gradually we are today one of the, we believe, contesting airlines on branding the aviation industry on the continent.
Okay. So I saw some of the news on your social media platform, South African Airways. It shows when you were appointed. And can you tell us, as soon as you were appointed, what were your priorities that you had as the CEO of South African Airways, and how did those priorities contributed to the success of South African Airways?
We had only we started with 6 aeroplanes in September 2021. And we grew the airline where today we are flying about 21 aircraft. And we have a game plan, which is our major priority currently, to grow the airline to where it can have a scale of between 40 or 50 aircraft in the coming 3 years. But the major priority is to ensure the long-term financial sustainability of the airline. Thankfully, part of our work has been to excavate the possibilities from assets to where we have restructured the cost structure of the airline and resized the airline and repositioned it as to what our priority markets, and what are the principles for the expansion and growth of the airline. And my second priority, which is linked to financial sustainability, is to ensure that these principles of prudent and economics-driven choice of routes that we start is taken care of, that we do not just expand or go everywhere for vanity's sake, but that every decision we take, every route that we launch is a result of a thorough analysis. Hence, we only took until early this year to connect Johannesburg with Dar es Salaam, whereas there was a lot of pressure and a desire from us to combine the two great nations of Tanzania and South Africa, because as you know, South Africa has a very special relationship with Tanzania, but we had to wait and ensure that it makes an economic sense for us to start connecting Dar es Salaam and Johannesburg.
All right, thank you, Professor John. We know that South African Airways is very reputable as one of the major airlines in Africa. However, the airline had a downfall at some point in time. What led to the downfall, and what lessons have you drawn from this experience?
Partly is because the airline was over-reliant on external financial support from the government, the shareholder. And there were frequent changes in the leadership of South African Airways, where there was no a grounded long-term strategy. Because for an airline, you need a long-term strategy all the time, of between at least 5 years. You need to think 5, 10, 15 years, even to 20 years to be a successful airline. Because the major equipment that we use, which is aircraft, have a lifetime of about 30 years. So as embedded in the center of the operating model of an airline is its fleet strategy. And that fleet strategy has to be based as to when do you purchase new aircraft, when do you modernize your fleet, and what average fleet age you want to maintain. For instance, if you want to say as an airline, you want to have a 12-year average age of your aircraft, means you must change aircraft every 12 years. So you'll need a strategy that says you must think 15 years beyond that. So that was one weakness. The second one, widely publicized, South Africa has gone through a painful period of just a culture of corruption within the political system, which weakened the governance of South African Airways. The responsibilities of the board to ensure that where there was any malfeasance, human beings will always try. I mean, it's part of, I'm sorry to say, of human nature, that unless there are rules and there's an enforcement of those rules, people always take chances. So SAA suffered a lot out of that. And our mission now has been to recreate South African Airways. We talk of the SAA that emerged since after COVID in 2021 as SAA version 2, grounded on principles of very careful and ethical governance, and with a very, very commercial intent, where the airline is not over-influenced by political decisions, where the operational decisions that we take are based solely with an eye on financial outcomes, and where every staff of South African Airways understand that this is a flag carrier, which within the African continent is one of the most admired flag as a flag carrier of South African Airways. We have noticed to our surprise, Zaina, that South African Airways was more loved and admired when we relaunched outside of South Africa than in South Africa. South Africans were having a debate: should we still have this airline? Should we spend money on it? But immediately we're flying to Accra, to Lagos, to Abidjan, to Lusaka, even to when we launched Lilongwe, Blantyre, people were receiving South African Airways with national jubilation.
All
And
right.
that really encouraged us. It's one of the things that inspired us as the leadership of South African Airways.
Okay. So based on all the challenges that South African Airways had been through since May 2022, what are the key strategies did you implement to return the airline into profitability?
The major strategy was to chase break-even point, where we ask ourselves, what do we need to break even? How many aeroplanes do we need? Which routes we should fly? And how big should our staff be? Okay, that was the business model re-engineering. Secondly, ensuring that we employ skilled people who know what their job is. And thirdly, just a very serious cost containment, where we ensure that how we buy, how we procure our fuel, how we negotiate our aircraft leases, because most of our aircraft are leased, that we get the right prices on all of those aircraft. But I said again, and emphasizing, reiterating that we are a commercial, we make commercial decisions. We are not influenced by any other influences external to the chase for the positive financial outcomes in the business.
All right. Professor John, what makes South African Airways different from the other African airlines in terms of customer service, operation, and flight connections?
To begin with is our obsession with safety. South African Airways has an impeccable safety record. And secondly, we benchmark ourselves against the best in the world. We are fortunate to be a member of Star Alliance, where among the 25 global airlines that are there, South African Airways was the first airline on the continent of Africa. There's only 3 of us on the continent of Africa who are members of Star Alliance. And among Star Alliance, we have airlines, we have Singapore Airlines, United Airlines, Lufthansa, and other like Air Canada, very reputable and established airlines. So that's one thing. Secondly, of course, is our premium service and specialized customer service, where we infuse the high quality South African lifestyle into our airline life experience. And for that reason, South Africa has SAA. Prior to COVID time, was the most Skytrax awarded airline on the continent of Africa, repeatedly winning the best airline on Africa. And we are now working very hard to rebuild that. The other advantage South African Airways has that our peers don't have is that the airline, South Africa, of all the countries on the continent, is the most, has the fiercest competition. We have more airlines competing in South Africa because South Africa has a per capita GDP per capita where people are very well earning, particularly around areas like Johannesburg and Cape Town. So people use air travel much more in a higher scale in South Africa than in other African countries. And for that reason, we are always exposed to very fierce competition, and that competition is forcing us to try and to offer the best of services. Yeah, first of all, it's not easy to become a member of Star Alliance. The conditions are very stringent and it's very expensive to be a member. But the advantage for us, it gives us connectivity. It ensures, which is what I should have mentioned, which was one of our strategies to your earlier question, that one of our strategies was as we were growing and we realized that we don't have enough aircraft, We amplified our size through alliances and partnerships.
Mhm.
So through Star Alliance, we are able to connect our customers into destinations that we cannot fly ourselves. For instance, we are not flying to Chicago currently, but we are able, because of our connection with United Airlines, to can fly from Dar es Salaam, okay, when we fly when we fly SAA, seamlessly from Dar es Salaam to Chicago, because United Airlines, which is a member of Star Alliance, is in the is a part of our partnership. We share airport lounges and other ancillary services that can be integrated, like loyalty programs.
All right, now let's move to the fleet expansion and aircraft choices. SAA recently introduced new Airbus A320 aircraft. Can you elaborate on the role of the planes are now playing in your operations?
Well, SA has flown Airbus aircraft for quite some time. It was not the first time that we were adding to our fleet Airbus 320s. Airbus 320s that we are flying now are not the cutting edge in the technology of Airbus 320s. There's now a new technology called A320 Neos, which is part of where our horizons are currently, where we have what you call our fleet renewal and modernization, which is driven not only by our quest for fuel efficiency, but also in terms of the environmental sensitivities that are there in the world today, where we need to decarbonize our footprint. Yes, we are currently flying a fleet of 14 narrow bodies, 10 of which are our A320s. We have 3 other A320s that are still going through regulatory certification. So we have A320s, and then we are flying also A330s, which are wide bodies, and A340s, which is another set of wide body aircraft that allows us to fly to interoceanic flights, as we say, like from Johannesburg to Perth, and from Johannesburg and Cape Town to Sao Paulo over the Atlantic, and other ways over the Indian Ocean.
Okay, so what factors influenced your choice of aircraft? How do these additions align with your operation and environment goals?
Three factors essentially. The first one is that we need to wanna keep our fleet very, very simple. We don't like. Actually, it's been proven that if you have too many types of aircraft, there are like 3 major aircraft manufacturers: as Airbus, Boeing, and Embraer. Now, as South African Airways, we have a simple fleet. We are a single type. You find only Airbus. So if it's an Airbus, we like it. If it's not an Airbus, we have problems with it, because then it costs us more tools, training of pilots, and so on, to move into another type. Secondly, is the mission of the aircraft. We look at our route. A320 is an aircraft where we can fly what we call our regional routes, where we are able to fly to Kinshasa, Lusaka, Dar es Salaam, and Mauritius with that aircraft, because it can reach that kind of a spectrum of destinations. Beyond that, for long routes within the African continent, which we call our regional market, we do wide bodies. We do the A330 and 340 up to Abidjan, including Lagos and Accra. Linked to this is also the issue of cargo, where we look and baggage and passenger baggage, as to how, knowing how our people and the behavior of our customers, we then get an aircraft that meets that behavior of our customers.
Okay, so now let's move to the challenges. We know that apart from the ones that you mentioned before, especially the challenge during the COVID-19 part, we know that a lot of airlines experienced some challenges during that time. So, what is the biggest challenge in running an airline business, just like South African Airways, as you are the CEO of airline right now?
The biggest challenge, of course, is driving profitability. It's
Mm-hmm.
very the airline industry is very expensive and is highly regulated. You can't just do what you like to make money.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the regulation, and it's an international airline, so you fly into so many jurisdictions. For instance, before we could fly into Dar es Salaam, we had to get, the bilateral agreement between the states, between our governments, and you have to be patient. And Africa, unlike in Europe, where they have open skies, we have 54 countries where it is not easy to just get permission to fly all over. So that's the biggest challenge here. But for SAA, our other major challenge is getting skilled crew, pilots, and aircraft technicians in the right numbers who can attend to all the challenges that we have with our aircraft.
As you speak right now, how many pilots does South African Airways have right now in a crew?
We have about between 140 to 160 pilots.
Wow.
And our plan eventually is to have close to 700 pilots.
Okay. Are that enough for the daily operations of South African Airways, or you still need more pilots?
We are recruiting pilots.
Okay.
If any from the audience are pilots and they have commercial pilot licenses, they want to come and fly with South African Airways, we
Okay.
would love to welcome them.
All right. Thank you so much. That's a big opportunity.
We are always recruiting. Remember, one of the challenges we have in Africa, in South Africa in particular, is to create jobs for our economies.
Mhm.
And we are very proud of South African Airways that we started in 2021 with only about 500 staff members. We are now we have tripled that number in the 3.5 years that we have been flying,
Mhm.
and all across all levels.
Okay. Apart from the few successful ones, why are most African airlines not profitable and unable to grow into major global careers? On your own perception.
Uh, Partly is because it's very expensive. There are added expenses that African airlines experience compared to airlines in other jurisdictions. For instance, jet fuel is one of the most expensive or the biggest um, cost factor in an airline cost structure.
Mhm.
The way we get jet fuel, you have Brent crude, you have crude oil, and crude oil has to be refined into jet fuel.
Mhm.
There are no, until recently, there are no, let me say, safe to say, there are no jet fuel producers on the continent of Africa. Okay, in South Africa, we have had one fuel refiner who have had to close about 6-9 months ago. In Nigeria, they are trying now to start producing jet fuel. But for that reason, it means that unlike our peers in other parts of the world, we pay about 30% more for jet fuel
Mhm.
than other aircraft, and so than other airlines on our aircraft. Secondly, there are high regulatory costs because of the complications with our infrastructure. Our airports are very expensive. We pay more to land and park at our airports. And yeah, and the restrictions that I mentioned, where you have to wait to get uh, permissions to fly your aeroplane into another jurisdiction. You wait for permits. You wait for a very long period. And again, the population, Africans don't fly much.
Mhm.
because it is expensive to fly in Africa
Mhm.
because of all these factors. So these factors restrict market growth and for the airlines to be able to make money.
All right. On the other part, other side of state-owned airline, why do most state-owned airlines struggle to become self-sustainable even after massive government investments?
Well, the answer is short there. I mean, there's this theory or this narrative that because airlines are state-owned, therefore they can be profitable because state interference and so on. I believe it's possible for airlines to still be profitable while they are owned by the state and thereby by the public. But there have to be a caveat that airlines cannot be run by politicians.
Okay.
Even if they're state-owned, they have to be run by business people who know what they're doing.
How did the expansion of South African Airways routes, including Dar es Salaam and Johannesburg routes, benefit Tanzanians, particularly in terms of employment and opportunities?
Yes. Airlines are catalysts of economic growth.
Mm-hmm.
Because South African Airways is able to fly into Dar es Salaam,
Mm-hmm.
we are not only carrying, okay, first of all, we are carrying passengers who will come and explore the tourist attractions of Tanzania, which Tanzania is so famous of. South Africans love Tanzania.
Right.
We have historical political ties
Mm-hmm.
where some of us, when we were younger, we used to live and work in Tanzania for the liberation movement.
Oh,
So there's a love for Tanzania. So there are those connections between us.
okay.
Secondly, the most important ones, of course, are the trade ones
Mm-hmm.
because they, besides commercial, there's trade, there's mining know-how in South Africa that is now expanding into Tanzanian and mining sector. As the Tanzanian mining sector booms, more South Africans are getting more interested in Tanzania. And there are a number of spin-offs. Tourists make sure that there are more restaurants that are being supported. The movement of goods make sure that there are more factories that can produce things from Tanzania and be able to send them to South Africa because we have this link.
The marketing strategies that South African Airways is using to make sure that it captures the passengers market in East Africa.
We use traditional. We are a legacy airline, so to speak. However, we are moving very aggressively. Obviously, legacy all airlines uses a network of our travel agents where people can go in and buy tickets. But the number one prize is where we use digital platforms. We use our website, where with our website we are linked to other applications, to social media, and devices that people now are carrying these days. But in South Africa, yeah, we use billboards, we use print, we use whatever we can. But the most important marketing strategy is to make sure that everyone who walks out of South African Airways aircraft is happy and he becomes as an ambassador or a marketeer of SAA.
Okay, so what's the last word that you have for the passengers from East Africa who are using South African Airways? What the message, special message that you have for them, and as well as stakeholders?
South African Airways is designed and positioned to be an international airline based in Africa. We are trying as much as possible to say that the world is getting one. We see we have a motto. If you come here to our offices, you'll see the motto of our offices that say, "When we rise, Africa rises with us." So we want to be known as an African airline and to be influenced by all the cultures among our customer base in the African continent, and to contribute to economic growth on the continent of Africa, and to influence the liberalization and the optimization of the aviation industry, of the airline industry in Africa, where the issues that I raised, like the regulatory impediments, the infrastructure problems, are dealt with. We are part of that major airline community lobby. We are members of the African Airlines Association and our other regional associations, where we are working for a change that will ensure that more Africans will fly, more Africans will know about their continent, and they will be able to fly affordably.
Okay. Long-term vision of South African Airways in 5 years. Where do you see South African Airways in 5 years?
We'll be flying about 50 aircraft, very modern aircraft.
Okay.
We will be one of the leading global brands. You'll be in New York, you'll be in London, you'll be in Hong Kong, you'll see South African Airways. And it will be an employer of choice where everyone will want to work South African Airways.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Professor John.
Thank you,
so
madam.
much
It
for
was
joining us
lovely.
today.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, everyone. We had an amazing opportunity to have an interview with the CEO of South African Airways, Professor John Lomola, who was joining us on Zoom. And he has shared a lot of things about South African Airways, from where it started and up to where it is right now, all the challenges that it has been through up to where it is right now. And we also get to hear about the opportunities, job opportunities to the pilots who are in South Africa and maybe in East Africa as well. And I hope you enjoyed the interview. My name is Zina Kasim. I keep reminding you to go and visit our social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, YouTube channel, and LinkedIn, as well as TikTok. You can find there as Aviation Tanzania. My name is Zina Kasim. Until next time, bye-bye.